Have you ever had one of those days where the same word, the same idea keeps showing up everywhere? Like maybe the lyrics of a song or the conversation you hear passing by some strangers or on the street, or a billboard you notice as you on your way to work. And then you think, is God trying to tell me something? Let me know in the comments if you had such an experience and what was the message that kept coming to you until you finally listened. Because what I'm about to share changed how I understand spiritual guidance forever. Picture this. One Tuesday morning, I'm watching an interview with Taka from ONE OK ROCK while I'm drinking my tea. The interviewer asks him, what do Japanese bands need to succeed globally? And without hesitation, Taka says, spirit.
れるような、そういう環境っていうのをもっともっと模索していきたいなと思うし、まあ音楽的にというよりは一人の人間として、すごくこうもっともっと成長していきたいなと今は思ってます。はい。
最後、日本のロックバンドが海外で通用するために必要なことは海外行った高谷から答えれると思う。
そうですね。気合ですね。
気合。
もうここまでいろいろベラベラ喋りましたけど、最後はもう本質に帰ります。気合です。
気合よな。やっぱもう話しても思ったもん、やっぱ気合とどっちかに舵を切ると。それでまあついてくるメンバーも
いや大変だと思うよ。
いやいやもう。
I felt something click inside me, like a door opening that I didn't even know was locked. But here's where it gets interesting. That same morning, half an hour later, on my online tantra class, my teacher gets asked a similar question. What is the source of all creativity? And his answer, spirit. I literally got goosebumps. When I checked the deeper meaning of the Japanese term that Taka had used, which was Kiai desu, I realized it means action of spirit, like a surge of willpower breaking through resistance. And my teacher was pointing to Tamashii, the soul itself, spirit in constant creative action. Two different expressions of the same divine essence, moving through our lives. This synchronicity taught me something profound. We don't have to choose between the spiritual and the worldly. Being in the eye of the storm is a wise recommendation in most genuine spiritual traditions. I have come to look at it rather as being in the middle of the miracle, where a Japanese rock singer and tantric teacher point to the same truth. And here is what hit me. What if spirit was showing me that truth appears everywhere when we're ready to see it? And this is where Let Spirit was born. Here's what I wish that someone had told me years ago. What if your attractions aren't distractions from your spiritual growth? What if they are your spiritual growth? Let me paint you a picture of where I was in my life when I discovered BTS. I was stuck in patterns I couldn't break. Unconsciously, I was choosing friends who reminded me of my mother, who I lost too soon emotionally because physically she is still with me. Then feeling betrayed by those friends because they couldn't fill in a void. In a couple of relationships, I was mistaking chemistry for connection. I was looking for my absent father in men who only wanted my body. And then Jungkook, his voice hit my playlist and his visuals brightened my perception. And his cuteness tickled my inner child, and his masculine, magnetic charisma awakened my dormant femininity. The response in all of my bodies was intense, like every cell suddenly woke up and wanted to live fully. Part of me judged. I'm a grown woman with decades of spiritual practice. Why am I reacting like this? But here's the question that made a difference for me. What if this intensity is pointing towards something I need to heal or develop within myself. Jungkook showed me that part of myself that had been sleeping, the raw, alive feminine that I'd been too preoccupied to own. That overwhelming attraction, it was my soul saying, remember this part of yourself. If you have ever felt your whole body respond just from hearing his voice or from watching him move, you know what I mean. This kind of pull is more than admiration. It is a current that awakens. In me, it propelled me into a dimension of what I call euphoric divine intimacy. An otherworldly connection that felt like love and desire, but revealed itself as a mirror. And it was not about Jungkook himself. It was about the places in me that were still waiting for my attention and needed healing. That pull became the doorway into my own soul. And then Jin showed me another face of the same energy, with humor, humanity. Jin elevated attraction into joy. Erotic current, lifted higher, becomes play, innovation, refined creativity. And then from RM, I learned to live in the heart of paradoxes, to hold opposing truths and just relax. It opened a doorway into the mind of God. Watching his documentary, Right People, Wrong Place, I saw him navigating paradoxes with awareness, living in that still place between opposites and keep moving forward. This is where my 20 years of study and practice of tantra, yoga, Buddhism, Zen teachings began to come alive in a new way. Until then, much of it had remained in my head as theory, lectures, notes. And now it all shifted from private practice into a way of guiding others, how to take this raw, overwhelming energy we feel towards someone, an idol, an artist, a lover, and transmute it into self-recognition, healing along the way. I was used to work with energy and the subtle, but it took Jungkook for me to figure out how to connect to the subtle beyond personality and physical contact to actually impact and transform my physical life. The shift happened when I stopped asking, why am I feeling this? And started asking, what is this feeling trying to show me? Such attractions point to qualities we are meant to develop and share, wounds that need healing, and aspects of ourselves that we have forgotten. The intensity isn't a detour, it's a directive. And this is what Let Spirit is about. Learning to see every experience, even the one that seems shallow or embarrassing, as invitations to come home to yourself. Between the fire of Taka and the chaos of BTS, I began to see something deeper, a center, the still axis holding all opposites together. Spirit was pointing me towards the 0 point. After hearing RM speak about living in the heart of paradoxes, something shifted. I began to embody living at the heart of it, live it as a way of being rather than as a concept. One evening, I tasted what that meant. I was driving back with 2 close friends after a night out. I was driving, they were behind me in the backseat, and a conversation unfolded between them. One of the girls was nagging about men being careless. While I was hearing her, the more she spoke, I kept hearing her replaying her old wounds into this present situation that they were talking about. And the other girl, much younger, she was simply confused about a situation, receptive, and she was soaking it all in. At first, I stayed silent, let the conversation follow its course. But when I felt this distortion, how her unresolved pain was being poured into someone else's innocence under the guise of wisdom, I intervened. I told her sharply to stop, to stay with the present situation, or be quiet, because she was infusing her own past into someone else's confusion. And the car fell silent. My words landed like a blade. When we got home, she went into her room, slamming the door in anger, while the younger one, quite the opposite. She was lit up with gratitude, relieved, joyful, thanking me for bringing clarity. One was yin, one was yang. And me, in the middle, detached, sharp, not blaming, not sugarcoating either. Simply the voice of spirit, cutting through distortion, surprising me just as much. My mind was also surprised. In that moment, I felt it. The 0 point isn't about being indifferent. It's about being centered, enough to act from truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The 0 point is that still center where you can hold opposites, fire and gentleness, boundaries and love, your needs and the other one's needs, without losing yourself. This is where real power lives. Not the power to control others, but the power to respond from your essence instead of reacting from your wounds. The synchronicity I mentioned at the beginning of the video had an awakening effect on me because it showed me how parallel realities speak to one another. They mirror each other across dimensions, across languages, across traditions. And they do so because all of reality is layered. Every layer of reality has its frequency of vibration, its own pitch. The higher the resonance, the finer the perception required to hear it. But this is not about superior or inferior. It is like music. A song that is sung in a low key makes us feel in a certain way. It has a specific resonance. The same song or another song, which is sung in a high key, has a completely different resonance and touches us differently. Each moves us somehow. What matters is not to remain imprisoned in one register or another. The key, as I see it, is freedom, the capacity to move between these layers. And that freedom is given in the 0 point, the silent axis at the core of opposite vibrations. I began to see the 0 point as an elevator, standing always in the center. You may step into it at any moment and rise or descend through the registers of reality. And the key that turns it on, the current that makes it move, is the Spirit of God within. The 0 point, though, demands radical honesty. And not everybody is ready for truth served without sugarcoating. I was discovering that when I was acting from this still center, life responded. Relationships became more harmonious and honest. Work flowed more effortlessly. Even conflict, when it arose, it felt pure, purposeful, rather than destructive. I began to see how most of us live in constant reaction. We swing between extremes, pulled by our histories, our triggers, our unexamined patterns. We mistake intensity for authenticity, drama for depth. We confuse being nice with being loving, being agreeable with being peaceful and harmonious. The more I embodied this teaching, the more I understood why it had remained theoretical for so long. Living from the 0 point requires something, maybe a higher spiritual, advanced spiritual level, or, well, at least true spiritual aspiration, because it requires full engagement with contradiction. It means being simultaneously compassionate and discerning, open and boundaried, humble and confident, individual and connected with the others. This isn't about finding some middle ground between these qualities. It's about discovering that they can all exist, and they all do exist simultaneously together. The tension between them creates something alive and powerful. In the weeks following that car ride, I practiced intensely. When someone pushed my buttons, instead of reacting or suppressing, I found a still point and responded from there. When faced with difficult decisions, instead of analyzing endlessly or acting impulsively, I dropped into that center and listened for what wanted to emerge. What I discovered was revolutionary. The 0 point isn't empty. It is full of presence, full of possibilities, full of the intelligence of the heart that knows exactly how to respond to whatever arises. When we embody this centered presence, we create space for others to find their own center. We become a tuning fork, helping people remember their own essential frequency. So the vision of Let Spirit expanded from necessity, from the recognition that the world needs people who can hold the center while everything around is spinning chaotically. This wasn't another spiritual bypass, another way to rise above the messiness of human existence. This was spirit in the mess, spirit as the response to whatever life brings. I envision a space where ancient wisdom meets modern life, where the deepest teachings get lived out in traffic jams and boardrooms and difficult conversations. A place where people could not just learn to think differently, but be differently. What if this could be your reality too? Imagine workplaces where decisions are made from wisdom rather than fear. Imagine relationships where love and truth dance together. Imagine communities of people living from this centered presence. The vision was audacious in its simplicity, to help people find their 0 point and live from it, not as monks or hermits, but as partners, parents, professionals, creators, entrepreneurs, human beings navigating full spectrum of existence with grace and authenticity. And this became my mission, to make the 0 point accessible, practical, livable. This spot of stillness in the middle of the miracle. To bridge the gap between spiritual insight and everyday reality. To help others discover what I had discovered, that this still point holds. And from this center, anything is possible. And anything good is necessary even to emerge and to be created. What would change in your world if you could access this still point, this powerful center in any situation? That spirit is about making spirit tangible, embodied, alive in your daily life. I guide women and men who want fulfillment that lasts, fulfillment that doesn't depend on external validation or extreme efforts, but grows from living as an embodied spirit It's about reclaiming your femininity, your erotic energy, your soul's vitality, and lifting it to a higher register where it becomes creativity, presence, and joy of life. It's about caring for the body as sacred, cultivating health and prosperity, so you have the energy to live your soul's destiny. It's about clearing the patterns of trauma and compromise and stepping into a life that is whole, harmonious, and abundant. This is why I've developed a simple method that I'm now sharing with you. As you have figured out by now, at Let's Spirit, it all begins with awareness. No, not rushing to fix yourself or the other, but paying attention to how spirit shows up in the middle of your everyday life. This path is about living truth right where you stand. So, out of that, here's the simple practice that I am sharing now with you. Step 1. Observe. Observe without judging. Instead of being embarrassed by what draws you, get curious. Both attraction and aversion are showing you something about you. What pattern do you notice in the type of people, music, stories, whatever it is that you are drawn to? Step 2, question. Ask deeper questions. Not why is this attracting me, or is this weird, or does this make sense? But rather like, what quality in that thing that attracts me am I being called to develop in myself? What do I see in them that is actually pointing to something in me? And the third step, embody. Act on what you have just learned by questioning the previous step. Step toward what attracts you or what you avoid. Live from this new position that you are claiming. Be abundant, be whole, be rooted in spirit, with boundaries that keep your heart pure, that keep your ability to love open and pure. Take responsibility for becoming what you've been seeking in others. Stop outsourcing your unmet needs and become whole. When we stop seeking completion in others and start recognizing them as mirrors of our own potential, everything changes. We stop being victims of our attractions or repulsions and start being students of them. So here's your turn to explore. Think about that something or someone that you are drawn to, that the people around you, your friends, your usual company doesn't understand. In my case, it's BTS. So instead of promoting that thing or defending it or dismissing it or hiding from your friends that you are attracted or repelled by that, ask yourself, what qualities does that thing embody that I admire or reject? So what is the quality? At least one, but try to get for 3. Second question. What do they permission me to feel or be? Those qualities. If you had those qualities that you are drawn to in that thing that someone else will reject, if you had those qualities that you are drawn to or you reject, what do those qualities permission you to be or feel? Third question. How might my soul be asking me to develop these qualities myself? So ask yourself, how might your soul be asking you by making you attracted to that or repelling that, develop those qualities within yourself? Take this as a homework, come back here in the comments and share what did you discover, what attraction in your life might actually be an assignment from your soul. Let me know. I would really like to know. This channel, Let's Spirit YouTube channel, it's a place that I've developed and I'm developing to share my perspectives on artists, books, movies, moments that touch me, always showing how they mirror the path of the soul. I share my own journey as a living example of what it means to spiritualize life itself. This is what Let's Spirit offers, a golden thread to follow, leading us back to the essence that is already within us. I see it as an ongoing initiative journey. If what I'm sharing here resonates with you, you feel that spark inside you saying this is your time, here are 2 ways to go deeper. Follow along the journey that I'm sharing. Subscribe, like, comment, share your perspective. Book a free conversation where we can look into your patterns, your soul's mirror, your potentials. Find the link below. Let's work together. Okay, so Let's Spirit is the outcome of me encountering Taka and ONE OK ROCK for the past 3 years of my life, and then slightly shifting towards BTS. The impact was even bigger than that because it really made me want to go to Japan, like so strongly that I did.
Humbleness.
So in the next 4 videos, I will share with you this very first action that I took to mark this new beginning of my life. This trip to Japan actually was more than a travel. It was my first planned holiday ever. But it turned out to be almost like an initiation. It was pure joy, a healing retreat, a rediscovery of a feeling of home beyond any logic. So join me in the next 4 videos. Tokyo, Kyoto, Okinawa, the main island, and Miyakojima, especially the dragon cave in Miyakojima. Because Japan, through these places, became the ground where my inner shift took root. From the deep release of Hari massage to cathartic crying under ancient trees. Each step unfolded like a mirror of spirit, constant guidance. Only later, when I landed in Copenhagen, did I realize I had walked through the very 3 steps of this Let's Spirit method that I've just shared. I learned to distinguish between the real, natural fears.
Oh my God.
And those fears, so many of the fears that I have and we have programmed into our minds, and how to face each of it in its own way. The outcome, again, was freedom, emotional healing, cleansing of all patterns, and a mind opened wider to the possibilities of spirit. Wherever you begin, know this. You are already walking the golden thread. Every attraction, every wound, every paradox is spirit calling you home. Welcome to Let's Spirit. Let us walk this path together. Let's enjoy every step of the way.